So it's finally here, the long-awaited follow-up chapter to the tunnel effect. A meme that has carried out way further than its original community and has started to infect plenty of other anime and manga communities, almost similar to another manga when it came close to its end. Because just based on everything that happens in this chapter, you really do have to ask yourself, is this the setup for the final battle of Sakamoto Days? Last chapter review, I made the joke that this could be Suzuki's way of rushing us and getting everyone together in one place in order to have one big final climax. Because if you really think about it, what is left for there to happen, especially with the way these last couple of chapters have felt very weird, and even though it's felt very off rails, is kind of streamlining to one point. Uzuki's plan to use all of the guns in Japan to completely shape a new society out of human instinct was a very fun and interesting idea, albeit Uzuki's plans had some holes in them, just like the Death Star in Star Wars, because the protagonist kind of handled that situation and it's all basically done for the most part. Shin's broadcast was able to get across most of the country and have almost all of the other gun wielders fire off their guns, and everyone else that wasn't able to have their bullets shot off because they weren't in range was hacked by Seba, who was literally still at the JCC, which is interesting to me because the JCC students being involved in this final arc, if this is the final arc, is a great way to include all of the side characters, and again, even equates to an awesome final duo moment between Shin and Seba. Even though these characters have no idea they're fighting alongside each other, they're still helping, which is, a great, top off to their relationship. Hey guys, real quick, if you want to support the channel, make sure you go down to gamersubs.gg/noop and get 10% off your nootropics and energy supplement fix, and we'll get back to the video. However, now that all of these questions and problems are solved, and Shin has been going through these motions fighting Uzuki to the point where Takamura Uzuki shows up, which was, sure, Shin definitely would have died, but I'm willing to push my belief away a little bit if it means making Shin be in a tense-filled situation. However, all of that tension goes out of the water the moment you have Atari show up and produce the tunnel effect. Now, if you didn't see my tunnel effect video on the main channel, definitely go check it out, because I have to be completely honest. I am willing to defend the tunnel effect. I don't think that is the issue with the Sakamoto Days story as of right now. The tunnel effect, in my opinion, does have actual setup, with Atari being able to do crazy things like producing a gun out of a bag, and Takamura being able to cut his arm off and put it back together. If any characters were gonna make a scenario like this, that's fine. Sakamoto Days has had crazier things before. What I think the point that everyone is missing is the plot contrivances, where it feels like a lot of this is forced. Again, I'm completely okay with Uzuki coming to face Shin, because that is a big leg up for Shin, making him feel like he really is presenting himself as a major threat to the main villain, and reminding him of Sakamoto. He deserves this moment if this is the ending of the series. However, once the situation becomes closer and closer and closer to becoming almost impossible for him to escape and not die, and the only way for him to not die is the tunnel effect, I have to question why we're even here in the first place. And we do get that answer in this chapter, because as, Shin and all of the Order members begin to fight a 1v6, 7, who knows how many, Kumanomis throwing, metal keychains. I do think Suzuki does one of the best things here that could have gotten the stories back on the rails, which is having Shin use his ESP power on every single main villain at once to have them all attack Takamura Uzuki. Because once Shin does this, stakes are able to immediately return to the story. Shin has now wasted his ESP command on every major villain, which makes him not useless, but significantly nerfed for any future battle that is to come from this. Which is, again, I think the best way to have all of this make sense. You have completely eliminated Atari's luck and Shin's ESP commands from the potential of a climax. That is immediately putting the heroes at a disadvantage. So it's almost like a equal exchange. For Uzuki's plan being thwarted, the protagonists lose two of their most important deus ex machinas. And in practice, I think this works because it gives Shin the perfect opportunity to escape from this impossible to win scenario. And if that's how the chapter ended, I think I would have been completely fine with it, because I don't need the Order and all of the villains to start fighting Takamura Uzuki and have deaths happen in that. I definitely don't need that. I think Gozu being able to use his electricity and all of the water that's around and shock everyone, and then actually shock Uzuki's mind to get his original personality back, I think, again, in a vacuum, that is perfect. I think that makes sense how it would stop the group battle and how it would knock everyone's senses back into place. Where I begin to have an issue with this is when you had the perfect opportunity to get Shin out of this contrived, very plot convenient, very forced narrative position he's in, and the electricity ends up shocking and paralyzing Atari and Shin to the point that they don't escape. So now, the status quo is the exact same. Nothing has changed in this chapter whatsoever, besides now Uzuki is of sound mind. And sure, is this the worst possible thing that could happen? Is this all because of the worst possible bad luck? Atari is a luck character. It is technically in lore making sense why all of this is happening. Look, I love Sakamoto Days. I'm never going to switch up on the series. I love Sakamoto Days more than anything in the world, and I'm going to be here to the end. You can always count on my content every single Sakamoto Days chapter. I will say, though, this is a very interesting turn of events, and every single chapter, when I think the series is about to get back on the rails, it seems to me that Suzuki is blowing off the rails in a different direction now, because who comes in to save Shin in this moment? Uzuki declares that after Shin giving this much of a problem, he is ready to use all of his force to attack and destroy the Sakamoto gang and the leftover traitors of the Order, which I had already assumed Uzuki was ready to do that anyway, but I digress. As Shin is about to die and about to be killed by Uzuki's whip chain, Sakamoto himself shows up to save Shin in the last moment. And how do I feel about this? Well, the same I felt about almost every single chapter in these last couple of string of the Shin vs. Uzuki mini arc. Sakamoto, the traumatized Sakamoto, even if he has overcome his trauma, what is Sakamoto doing against every single villain in the series? So here, I still feel like we need some kind of convenient thing to happen or deus ex machina to occur to get us out of this scenario as well. We didn't really move on. Now we just have another character who needs to be evacuated ASAP before they die. Because sure, Sakamoto is one of the strongest characters in the series. If he hasn't overcome his trauma, he can't even beat Torres. How is he supposed to beat everybody? And sure, a lot of people have said that maybe this is Nagumo. That would be cool. Nagumo against every villain in the Order. I still don't see how that's going to happen. I understand that Suzuki was setting up a perfect way for Shin and Atari to, for lack of a better phrase, blow their load and not have their ultimate MacGuffin abilities at the end. But I think that could have been done in so many different ways. But again, I'm not the creator of Sakamoto Days. I just think with everything we've seen with how the exhibition arc kind of just ended, how we kind of meandered around with the Sakamoto training arc, the prison arc was, I think in my opinion, a great return to form, and I enjoyed it. And I even enjoyed the kickoff of this new big climactic arc we're in right now. But it just seems like a lot of things are being forced. And is that because we're just going through the motions again? Or is it because Sakamoto Days is gearing up to enter its final climactic battle, and this was just the easiest way to get everyone in one place in one time? What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Again, I'll be here every single week. I love this series, and I'm willing to criticize series that I love, but that does not mean that I hate the series. Please don't take my criticism as me turning on Sakamoto Days. I love Yuto Suzuki, and I still think even if Sakamoto Days ends this way, not only will we get an amazingly choreographed fight for the final group battle, I still think I will hold the series in my heart, as still one of the greatest manga when it comes to fight choreography, fight art, and all of that good stuff. But y'all, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you don't want to miss any of the future Sakamoto Days chapter reviews, especially as we potentially approach the end. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, 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 peace.